And Mac, joined by our buddy Scott Grayson, the sports director of Fox 29 and Eagles fan. I want to start there. Eagles fan. How do we determine when you're an Eagles fan or not? Because John and Stonis and McMullen and I were having a conversation early, and I was a little surprised, if not taken aback, by the fact that both John and John were willing to cut Jalen Hurts some slack that, he might have been sick the other night. And he said something that maybe he didn't really understand what he was saying. And we don't necessarily want or need to hold him accountable because he might have been sick. And Nick Sirianni has said some lying and dumb and foolish things this week, but he might have just misspoke. The whole going for a pass interference thing, he just got his words jumbled and whatever. And you shouldn't hold it against him. Should we? Because if we're not, here's where I think we have to hold players and coaches responsible for what they say. If you're a fan of a team, you want to root for the team. You want to root for the individual players. You want to become a fan of a player. Jason Kelce is such a popular player in this town because of what he says and how he handles himself in public situations. That makes him as lovable as he is. If we're not going to listen to what these guys have to say and hold them to what we're saying, we're back to the old Seinfeld joke of, well, we're rooting for laundry. We're not really rooting for a team. We're not rooting for guys. We're rooting for Midnight Green. That's all that it is.
By the way, that Jerry was right. That's all any fan does. They're rooting for laundry.
See, I disagree with that. I hope that fans are more than that. That they actually pay attention and listen to the people.
They'll be.
I think this fan base does.
Yeah,
I think this fan base pays attention. Look, we've seen trash cans outside of the NovaCare complex, and we've seen signs to run the ball. I think this fan base is an educated fan base that pays attention. Now, I agree with you. I think I've used this analogy this week. I think Nick Sirianni is flying a plane that's got two engines on fire, and he's got to try to figure out a way to land this thing. And I think he's acting like a guy who's feeling the pressure of flying a plane that's not really doing real well and has got a very good chance of not landing. And it's, to me, I think, I was just looking back while you guys were talking at the transcript from yesterday and just kind of refreshing my memory a little bit of what he was saying. And
some doozies in there.
There are things that are being said that just make you scratch your head right now. And I would argue Nick has not faced this kind of pressure in his 3 years here. I know they lost 3 games in a row the year they went to the playoffs and played Tampa and then lost.
No expectations, though, that year.
Exactly. And this team, and the reality of the situation is they're 10-4. And they could finish this season 13-4. They really should finish 13-4. And if you told me at the beginning of the year with the schedule they had that they would have gone 13-4, I would have said probably a shot at the 1 seed, probably not. Probably should win the division. And you look at it and you go now, well, it's not what they've done. It's how they've done it that really has everybody so frustrated. And then you come out afterwards, you defend a quarterback who makes passes that should have never been thrown. And my question to them is, what are you guys doing in film sessions that he keeps making the same mistakes? Are there the accountability? You use the word accountability. Is there the teaching points? Are there the lessons made with the film to show him that you had Kenny Gainwell here who could have run probably 20 yards, maybe at least 15, and given you a shot at a field goal, at least one more play after that to get a little closer to tie the game? Is there accountability held when you're watching the film and seeing James Bradbury get burned in man coverage the entire way down the 92 yards of the field to say maybe we shouldn't be doing that? Where you use the word accountability. And I think this is all the pressure coming in on Nick. And he says, don't blame Brian Johnson, blame me. We've run the consistently same offense the last 3 years. Well, Nick, that's the problem. Look at Andy Reid. He runs these ring around the rosary things and tries to at least do something different and unique. There's no creativity right now on either side of the ball. And that's my problem that I see looking at this. And I think Eagle fans are smart enough to look at all this and hear the words that are said and say, I'm not really buying this. And it's going to be a real interesting game on Sunday or Monday.
To Jody's point, I have the luxury of not being a fan, so to get everyone upset. I just give you my opinion of what I thought, Jalen. I thought it was kind of a throwaway line. Now, I don't know if it was because of the illness, but that's how I took it. Now, Nick constantly
All right,
lies to the
John,
campy.
can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts has been the quarterback of the Eagles for how long now?
3 years as a starter. This is his 3rd year, 4th year overall.
Throwaway line during those 3 years.
And that's why we brought up the illness. And I made the joke about nighttime NyQuil instead of daytime NyQuil. I think he was a little loopy. But anyway,
Or he was pissed off because they lost 3 games in a row and he
Possible.
was being honest.
it's possible. It's possible. Very rarely, though, is he honest. You get a bunch of T-shirt slogans.
Very rarely he
Well-
lost 3 games in a row.
So
you mentioned Jody. You mentioned Jason Kelsey, and you're right. If you want to compare the two guys, Jalen Hurts and Jason Kelsey, we all know Jalen Hurts is going to give you what sounds good. A lot of
T-shirt
times, he's going to
slogans.
give you
Yeah.
what sounds good.
yeah,
Jason Kelsey is going to give you the brutal, honest truth. And frankly, he's one of the
Yep.
first guys who will come out after a game and say, "I suck today. I suck today." And I think that's one
with
thing
the other night, he was brutally honest. He goes, "Yeah, they told me not to do it. I did it. I did it. I was wrong. That's on me. That was a stupid move by me. He took the bullets, which he should have taken."
And
Yeah.
it makes it more forgivable, does it not? When somebody's honest like that, as long as you don't, it's the same. I tell my kids all the time, don't make the same mistake twice, right? Or even 3 times. Okay, he did it. He got caught. Now the key is if Jason does it again, well, then you start going, come on now. You told us that they're looking at it and you did it again.
by the way, he tried to steal like a yard. It was ridiculous. So anybody complaining about that, that's the wrong thing to be complaining about. But I will say this. You're right. I mean, Jason endears himself. So there's a sliding scale to get back to Jody's point. And those guys tend to endear themselves. But I mean, does anybody think Jalen was being honest the 3 years before Monday night? The guy never tells you anything. Nick Sirianni lies to your face as an Eagles fan. That's up to you if you want to accept that. I got to ask the guy questions. Sometimes he's honest behind the scenes. Sometimes he isn't. But he lies in front of the camera all the freaking time. And he did it a bunch to the fans last week. They love him up until they don't love him. They love Jalen Hurts up until they don't love, and I think they still love Jalen. But Jalen doesn't give you anything on a weekly basis. So I don't see the connection to somebody like Kelsey, who is more above board. And certainly he becomes more endearing because of it, other than the quarterback's the superstar and the quarterback's the quarterback. I mean, he never gets you anything.
No, and to me, Jalen's value is not what he says, it's how he acts. I think the way he stays calm on the sidelines in the midst of a lot of chaos is usually what I respect the most out of him as an athlete and a leader. And it's not what he says, it's how he acts. Now, we don't know what he says behind the scenes in closed doors.
Yeah.
We don't know what he might be saying this week to those guys. Frankly, this is when you need a franchise quarterback to step up and verbally behind the scenes and get this ship righted. I mean, you can't rely on these coaches. You can't rely on the players alone. It all has to be joint. But he's got to step up, in my opinion, and be a leader behind the scenes.
Scotty, I'll tell you the reason why the Eagles have lost 3 straight games. One phrase: lack of chunk. This is a team that's philosophy is built around chunk plays. They've given up way too many chunk plays on defense. That's why Sean Desai is now floating hither down at the Eagles complex with a title, but we don't.
I wonder if he got Howie's old office when he
may
got,
very well have.
yeah.
It's
when he got banished.
Very, very well to be determined. And I saw this on Rube Stats in his column after the game, which I think was very telling. In the first 10 games of the year, the Philadelphia Eagles had 8 plays over 40 yards. In these last 4 games, they have no plays over 40 yards. So early on, they made chunk plays. Last 4 weeks, they're starving for a chunk play. And that's what Jalen Hurts was going for, a chunk play. now we can get into the semantics and definite what is or isn't a chunk play. We all agree over 40 yards would be a chunk play. The Eagles are over the last 4 weeks, and they tried to force that in the game the other night. Who's to blame for that? Jalen Hurts, the play caller, or the head coach because it's his offense? Understood it's a combination effort, but if you had to put them in order of blame, who would you blame most for the Eagles trying to force a chunk play Monday night against Seattle?
See, you just don't know what was called, right? Is Jalen like? I put the blame on Jalen. Ultimately, he's the one who threw the ball, and you can go to the sideline if you're Jalen and come back and say, I didn't like what I saw, and most coaches will accept that. I didn't like what I saw. He was getting too close to the sideline. There was enough there that by the time the ball comes down, the other guy could get.
Oh, as John noted, 12 yards off the line of scrimmage. The DB was playing him on that play, John.
12
you're not going to beat
There
him.
it is. I
You're
like what I saw. The DB was back 12 yards.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If that was the first quarter or second quarter, I'd have been okay with the try, right? Maybe you draw the flag. Maybe you don't. Maybe you connect, because AJ is good in one-on-one going up for a ball and coming down with it. But when the game is on the line, and that is essentially your last play, because if it falls incomplete, even you now have 6 seconds left. What are you going to do? You're going to have to chuck a Hail Mary. To me, I just think it was a bad decision all around. And if it was a coach's decision, to me, it's a fireable offense. I mean, that's
whoa. Let's get Nick out.
Okay, let's go back to maybe not a fireable offense, but we'll just change play calling responsibilities, and we'll still call you the offensive coordinator. It's just. To me, I don't get it. I really don't get it. And I think Jalen had no right throwing that ball. You're right. You look at the coverage, he's 12 yards off. Right then and there, like AJ's not going to beat him down the field.
Well, I think it's ironic, Scott, that look, I don't like the play call either, but I don't like the play call because, and I tell Jody all the time, nobody judges play calls. They judge play results. So the result was awful. So they don't like the play call. Mm-hmm. Baked into that play call was, you come off the first progression to the second progression. If you take the second progression, all of a sudden it becomes a good play call. And you're in a position, maybe Jake Elliott kicking a field goal and everybody's happy. So that's sort of the dividing line. As Jody pointed out, 12 yards off the cornerback. He didn't look off the safety, so the safety could get over. The Eagles were in the same defense when Seattle won the game. Literally, the same defense. One cut would be what most people call it. Same defense. Drew Lock did his job identifying man-to-man coverage. The Eagles didn't execute it. Seattle did. It's players. It's always the players.
Well, it is. It is which is why I said I think Jalen's the one who threw the ball. I think you put it on him in the end. But isn't there we're talking about a high level of football here. And if Jalen looks out at AJ Brown and AJ Brown looks at Jalen and there's a guy 12 yards off of him, don't you have a variation of a route where you just bull hard off the line like you're going to go down there to back them off, stop 12 yards, go out of bounds, and they're now on the edge of field goal range?
Well, no, here's what I would say. So if I'm going up to the line of scrimmage, I'm not trying to say, but if Jalen Hurts is going up to the line of scrimmage and you see the corner 12 yards off, you go right there. All right. Already in your head, you should say, all right, the first progression is going to be difficult. Start thinking about your second progression, see where that's going to be. Right there, that should be in his head. Then as the play develops, you look at it, maybe something changes. Maybe the corner makes a mistake. Maybe AJ gives him a hesitation move. Maybe he gets a step. You still got to look off the safety, which he didn't do. So you get him going to the opposite side of the field. Then you come back. Maybe it's there. Maybe it isn't. But if it's not there, you go to the second progression. That's why I say it's got to be more on the quarterback than the play caller, the head coach even. And the head coach, while he's lying to you, he's trying to protect the quarterback. And he said something stupid. Have at it. Stupid explanation. Oh, we're trying to get a pass interference, which is dumb. But Jalen made a mistake, and it's like, That's where we are. And Bill, you don't want to blame the players, which is fine.
But a step further, okay, I agree with you entirely. A step further would say this is not the first time we've encountered this problem. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, they're Jody's right. They're taking too many shots down the field, especially if you look at that entire game. Seattle was playing their safeties for most of the game in the parking lot. I mean, they came into the game saying, we're going to limit explosive plays. And that's why the Eagles had such, they were doing a great job of it early. They were taking the running plays. They were moving down the field. The first two of the first three drives were very effective. And all of a sudden they got away from it. Why? I don't know. But
That's also been a consistent problem.
They're so intent because they've had so much success with explosive plays. They want them. They crave them. And when they're not there, they can't be patient. I asked Nick that in the press conference. He had a decent answer. It was one of his few decent answers. They crave them. Same thing happened to Kansas City years ago when everybody couldn't stop Tyreek, and they said, you know what? We're just going to play our safeties in the Arrowhead parking lot. And you're going to have to meticulously go down the field. And there was like a 6 or 7 game stretch where Mahomes was getting frustrated because he's used to the big plays. He's used to those gash plays. And then he figured it out. Eagles got to figure it out if teams are going to do that.
And I don't understand, though, what is wrong? Like, what is wrong with a 12-play drive and another 12-play drive where you are wearing down a defense, theoretically, and you are moving the chains. And that's what they did. And sometimes, obviously every game plays out differently for various reasons. As this game played out, it was evident that there was an opportunity to keep moving the ball down the field. And that's where I then go to the play to Quez Watkins and pull my hair out and say, why?
Well, yeah.
That to me is part of the problem. Making a reference from earlier in the show, not NQ, NyQuil, NQ, no Quez. That would help things immeasurably with the team right now. And my disdain for Mr. Watson's contribution aside, what has Olamide Zaccheaus done wrong? What did he do? Did he tell a bad joke at a team meeting? Did he hit on somebody else's girlfriend that was not acceptable within that locker room? Why don't they ever give that guy a chance? Because it seems to me when they put him out there, he actually makes plays, unlike the guy who always gets more snaps than him as the third wide receiver, Mr. Watkins.
Correct. I completely agree with you, Jody. I don't have an answer to that question because, you say Zaccheaus, and my first thought is the great touchdown catch he had. It was a big one at the time in the game a few weeks ago. I don't know. And what I think frustrates people the most is you just don't see the effort with the ball in the air. On that opportunity, look, Jalen Hurts is putting a lot of trust in you. So at the very least, make sure it's not intercepted.
Yeah.
And the end of that route, you just see him just kind of like, I don't really have a shot at that. Yeah.
The worst part is because Nick, and he did it again yesterday, talks about Quez's impact, clearing things out. You got to respect his speed, blah, blah, blah. John Stolnis brought out, and he's right, because I saw the same play was talking about. There's one, he was designed clearing out. He's just jogging like it's, a leisurely jog in the park.
Thursday walk through.
Yeah. So he's not even affecting the game that way. But I will say, if you cut Quez Watkins today, who cares? It's a Band-Aid on a broken leg. That's not the issues with this offense. They shouldn't have thrown the ball to him in the end zone.
Well, again, I have to apologize. I know I've been obnoxious today and I keep interrupting. Here's who cares. Me. If Howie Roseman No, John, this is let me finish. Legitimately, Howie Roseman walks down to the locker room and tells Nick Sirianni, Quez Watkins is cut today. And Sirianni goes, why? The answer from Howie Roseman is, I don't trust you. You'll put him back out there. You continue to say he makes a difference, and he doesn't. So I figured the only way that we can actually get Scott Grayson doesn't understand. Jody McDonald doesn't understand. Me, Howie Roseman, I don't understand why Olamide Zaccheaus isn't playing. You're the one who's making these decisions. I guess since we've discussed it, you've never changed. The only way for me to get Quez Watkins out of the lineup is to give him his walking papers. I think Howie Roseman should do that today.
Well,
that's fine. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I was just going to say, listen, it's all well and good they're throwing around the word accountability like it's happening. The only accountability we've seen so far is that Sean Desai lost play calling ability.
Yep.
That's holding a coach theoretically accountable. The only way you're going to see some sort of accountability within the players is something like that, Jody. I mean, that would scream accountability, right? And send a message to the rest of the team like, you guys better stop loafing around on routes or whatever. And you say, okay, well, the coaches need to hold the players. Okay, fine. Put Quez inactive 1 week. See what message that sends. But they won't do it. They won't do it. You won't see any of that. So it's.
Well, I would say from a larger perspective with Quez, you saw without Quez for 4 weeks when he was on injured reserve.
How'd that
They
go?
did nothing. The bigger, they did nothing. They did nothing with. They don't have a third receiver, whether it's Quez Watkins, Olamide Zaccheaus, Julio Jones.
You're speaking the guy who replaced him. Okay.
I'm talking.
I thought you were talking about the Eagles overall. They did nothing. I was going to say, I think that was like the best 4-game run that they had.
They don't have a third receiver. That's been one of the disappointments of Julio Jones. Olamide, I mean, he might be the best of the lot, but again, it's the Band-Aid on the broken leg. You brought up the accountability of the coaching staff. I think that's what I was saying about Quez. Doesn't matter. He stinks. Get him off the field. All right. Problem solved. You still don't have a third receiver. The defensive play caller. Why? I'm asking everybody this, and this is the first time we've had you on since, Scott. So
yeah,
why? Week 15, and Nick Sirianni goes out there yesterday. Again, take it for what it's worth. We can't change much at this stage. So why are you changing much at this stage?
Well, my question beyond that, John, is if you're going to change the play caller, why didn't the play calling really look all that different?
The same. They played the same third.
You had a
they always play
competitive advantage, and
because Sean Desai was in Seattle. Yeah, I guess.
I agree with you, John. I think the timing of it all is very, very questionable. Why? What did you expect to change? Is it because you want to be able to go out there and say, well, definition of insanity, we're not going to do the same thing and expect different results? Well, we did something different. Well, you got the same results. So what are you going to do? I mean, the problems are, and you saw it was very interesting to me. Christian McCaffrey's on with the Mannings, and he tells everybody what the play is going to be as it's being run. To me, this offense and the defense are way too predictable. And when Nick comes out yesterday, he almost basically admits it to you when he says it's the same consistent offense we've run for the last 3 years. You can't be the same consistent offense. You can be a same scheme or a same idea, and you have to find different ways to run the same plays.
Damn it, I hate defending Nick, especially in these 2 weeks. Now I'm going to defend him. I'm going to break because I don't want to defend him. Hey, we remember Tony Romo. I tell this to Jody all the time. Remember when he first got the job at CBS? Everybody was blown. Their minds were blown. He was calling plays at the line of scrimmage. If you're a smart football player, and Christian McCaffrey is off the charts, football IQ.
Stanford guy.
He can do that at will for every team in the NFL. Literally. Same
but
with
there's
Tony.
Probably 30 whatever defensive coordinators out there who are pretty smart people who can pretty much.
Yeah. That's why I always say it's about execution. It's about the players. It's about
there's 10 guys on defense that you're going against before you snap the ball every single time. Probably got a pretty good guess what plays coming.
Bobby,
but then if you block it up right and you cut right and you make the right physical move, you can beat that.
Yeah. Trust me, Bobby Wagner can call out every stinking play they're running. And that's not because they're it's because he's a smart freaking Hall of Fame football player.
Well, let me go back to something you guys were talking about while I was sitting here waiting to come on. Back to the Niners. And you look at them and you go, talent-wise, Okay, I would consider, and I'll start at tight end, George Kittle and Dallas Goedert. Roughly the same player.
Kittle's better.
Okay, I'll give you that. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk as a duo. Give me, I'm happy with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Okay, Christian McCaffrey, best running back in the league. I would say Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. The offensive line with the Eagles, I'm saying just if you took them one in a head-to-head competition with each other, he gives you more dynamic ability. The offensive line with the Eagles is better.
That's true.
But the Niners move the ball like they're running against the Little Sisters of the Poor. And the Eagles struggle to get first downs. And when they are moving the ball, they go away from what's working. So you can say execution, but to me, I think some of it,
the San Francisco's defense is much better than Philadelphia's defense. So Philadelphia's offense has got to go against the San Francisco defense. Meanwhile, the San Francisco offense is going against the Philadelphia defense.
I'm not taking them head to head. I'm talking about just in general. The Niners can move the ball with that offense, and they do a bunch of different things with motion. They do a bunch of different things to try to disguise what they're going to do.
Well, Kyle's great, but Scott, now, as Jody knows, I think Kyle is the best play schemer, play caller in the NFL by far. But everybody's fighting for number 2. However, go back to the NFC Championship game. Everybody's mocking him. Oh, he's got a backup tight end blocking Hassan Reddick, and he gets his quarterback killed. Guess what? That's been a staple of the Shanahan offense for 15 years, 20 years. How long is Mike? God, 30 years. That's what they do. It's play action. You're trying to create an environment where you're fooling the defense and sucking them in. When it doesn't work, people are like, how can you get the quarterback killed? It's all results. They're cooking right now.
Oh, they are.
And they destroyed the Eagles.
They
so did. He looks like and he is. He's in good times and bad times, he's the best in the NFL. But again, if the Eagles show up and block, I don't know, insert this week, Kayvon Thibodeau all of a sudden is starting to stand out with Jack Stoll, and Jalen Hurts bust his shoulder or his elbow. You know, all of a sudden the motion and all the rigmarole and all the thing that people want, Jody's right. It's execution, man. It's execution.
It is, but it's also, it is. And ultimately these players, I mean, some of them are just, I question whether some of them are giving you 100% when they get out there now, especially as the game starts to turn. But I just feel like play calling is an art to me. I think play calling is an art. You run something to set up something you want to run later in the game. I don't get the sense this staff does that. Do you?
I don't think they're as good at it as Shane. I think Shane is special in that aspect, that particular aspect of what you're talking about. He would set people up and go back. The callback, I like to call it. He would do that. They don't do that as well. But I expected that with first-year coordinators.
That's fair.
You have growing pains. They're learning on the job. There's a reason Shane Steichen was the offensive coordinator and Brian Johnson. We saw this with Andy Reid. Andy Reid had that Hall of Fame staff in 1999. Look at it today. It's unbelievable. And he started to lose them as they got head coaching jobs and other jobs. And it wasn't as good. The Xerox is never as good as the original. Should that surprise people?
No, but I would like to think that by week 15, week 16, like they always say, you know, when you get to February,
AG's looking pretty good right now.
When you get to February of a college basketball season, they say they're not freshmen anymore.
That's true.
That's
you
fair.
know, and we're here in week 15, week 16. We're almost the end of what used to be a regular season.
Yeah,
and they're going the wrong direction. I mean, this team is not playing their best football in December. They're playing their worst.
Scotty, I got bad news for you. Last year you talk about by the time you get to this week that rookie status is in the rearview mirror. Guess what? Jalen's MVP status is now in the rearview mirror from last year. And oh, by the way, the guy who was leading in the MVP, Most passing touchdowns in the NFL, Brock
I
Purdy.
told you, you went down the
Passer
the Purdy
rating
route.
by far, number one, Brock Purdy. Passing TDs to interception rate, Brock Purdy, number one. Yards per attempt, Brock Purdy, number one. Yards per completion, Brock Purdy, number one.
No argument here.
Brock Purdy, number one. So you can't, as we're sitting here in week 14, go, yeah, I'll take Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy.
I think we had.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and I'm saying Jalen the big picture, not Jalen this year as an isolated example. Because now I got Jalen with a bum knee for part of it. Jalen who's sick. Jalen with a less dynamic offense than what it should be. So right now, I agree with you. Brock Purdy is doing everything he needs to do for that team to win a Super Bowl. I agree with you.
Yeah. At Scott Grayson, Box 29. Scott and I talked about two other subjects, and he didn't get past the moment you said Hurts over Purdy.
Yeah, well, listen, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Not right now.
No,
because we were having the conversation about comparing the Eagles to the 49ers now. Okay. Now is now. Now is not last year or previous years, right? Now is now. And now it's not close.
No, I agree with you. Right now, the Niners are a churning machine doing all the right things and going into the postseason with all the momentum and confidence.
And that's where the Eagles have to, and that's where I bring it up, and we got to go at S Grayson Box 29. Make sure you follow Scott on X and Twitter. Does a tremendous job. You going to be down there for the unveiling of Matt Patricia today?
Oh, I will be there. I will see you.
All right. I will see you there.
All right, I get the last question then.
Sure. Shoot.
Matt Patricia, pencil, no pencil?
Doesn't matter. You know what? I don't like the pencil. The pencil's a shtick. Like, get rid of it right now until you start doing something good.
You got to
earn his pencil here in Philadelphia. Is that what you're saying, Grayson?
Yeah, you win, and then you can use the pencil.
You need the pencil to write 3rd and 10. Same defense as always.
All right. Scotty, thanks, bud. That's Scott Grayson, 529 here with some birds. 365.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Quick timeout. Come back. Tell me here.